Wow, what a powerful time of worship. Come on, if you love Jesus, if you're grateful for Jesus in your life, you know that it's his breath that fills your lungs, that he's the one who gives you hope and purpose and life. Come on, right wherever you're watching this from, let's give Jesus an ovation that only a king is worthy of. Come on, Life Point Online, right where you're at, let's give Jesus an ovation. Woo! Y'all, I can feel the Life Point spirit like just coming through this screen. I tell you, it's not the same. I mean, when you're here physically, I of course would prefer that, but so grateful for our worship team, so grateful for you. Thanks for making Life Point Online a priority this weekend. And if you're a first-time viewer, can I just welcome you? Man, wow, the fact that you would take time to view this live stream is incredible. Matter of fact, I would love to send you a $5 Starbucks gift card. Seriously, this isn't a gimmick, no strings attached. If you just write in the chat, Facebook or YouTube, if you're watching live, first-time viewer, we'll send you a form, fill it out so we can get your email, and we'll send you an electronic $5 Starbucks gift card. It's just our way of saying thank you for viewing. And if you are a first-time guest, my name's Nate. It's an honor, privilege to be the pastor here at Life Point. And today, y'all, this is crazy. It's like week 10 of Church at Home. I know, like you never thought going back to January 2020 that like for 10, 12 weeks, your house would be turned into a church and your living room is a sanctuary and you are the pastor and your kids is the kids ministry and y'all are the choir. But here we are, we're doing it. And I think the Lord is using this. And I say that because there's hope though. There's hope. If you're from the state of South Carolina, you know, just about everything has now reopened or is about to reopen. Non-essential businesses have already reopened. Carowinds, zoos, laser tags, bouncy, jumpy places. Essentially, we're in a state where our governor is allowing basically everything to begin to reopen with social distancing and CDC guidelines approved. So you're probably wondering, okay, well, what about Life Point? Like, when are we going to start gathering together again physically? And y'all, I'm excited. You ready? Because we got a date. That's right. We've got a date this summer where we feel like, as a leadership team, it is safe and it is time to reopen Life Point back to physical gatherings. We feel like we can do it in a way that, first of all, keeps your health as our first priority, and we don't have to compromise the quality of the experience of what we do. So here's what I want to do. I want you to mark your calendar, yell a reminder to Siri or Alexa for this date, this Tuesday, okay? This Tuesday coming up, May the 26th at 7 p.m., right back here on Facebook or YouTube. We're going to release the press video, if you will, where I'm going to talk about in pretty good detail what the reopen strategy is going to look like for this coming up summer, because we got a date, y'all. I love every Sunday when we would meet physically, but there is an anticipation that this feels like Christmas morning is coming up, getting closer. And I know that we haven't been gathering physically, but the church, the body of Christ, has been meeting and we're getting stronger. And I know that the enemy of darkness is freaking out right now as churches start reuniting back together. And I just believe, church, I'm telling you, I know it's going to look different. It's not going to be the same as it was, but it's going to be better. And so join me, would you? This coming up Tuesday, May the 26th, 7 p.m., right back here on Facebook or YouTube, so you can hear it first as we outline what we believe is a really good reopen strategy. I hope you do that. Well, y'all, we got some work to do. Today, this is week 5 of a teaching series we've been in called Family Reunion. And, you know, one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about teaching on the family reunion, which is all about rediscovering the union of family, is because as your pastor, I want you to succeed in what matters most. I do. I want you to win in what matters most. And I'm so sold out. I believe without a shadow of a doubt that the greatest legacy that you can leave behind, it's not a dollar amount in your bank account. It's not a vacation house that you're going to pass down, but the greatest legacy that you can leave, the thing that will have the most impact on culture, on society, on the generations ahead of you, is the family that you raised. And so today, let me go ahead and just warn you, this is a note-taking Sunday. I know you're used to like watching Life Point Online on bed. You're laying in the bed or you're on the couch with the blanket eating some Fruit Loops, and that's great. But this is one of these Sundays. This might be the most practical message out of the entire series. I'm going to give you hands-on tips when it comes to parenting. And so I just want to encourage you, go ahead, grab that if you need to, especially if you are raising kids, or maybe one day you plan down the road to have a family. Matter of fact, if you're single or you're married, you don't have kids, you should lean in and take some of the best notes, because you have the opportunity to avoid a lot of the pitfalls, let's just be honest, that a lot of us parents have fallen into. So here's what I want to do. Today, if you want to write this down, I want to speak to you from the subject, parent in season. Yeah, parent in season. Now, I'm really curious, right here in the chat, I want to know, how many kids are you raising? Yeah, go ahead, type it in. How many kids do you have? How many kids are in your house? How many kids are you raising? Anybody got 2? Are you typing 2? Anybody got 4? 4? Okay. Anybody have 6 or more kids? Hello, holler at me right here. 6 or more. How many do you got? Type it in right there, because here's what I want to do. For each service, I want to figure out per service who's raising the most kids, so that I can send you a $50 Target gift card. That's right. Now, I see what you're doing. Don't go backspacing. And you just said you had 2. Don't put a 1 in front of the 2 and tell me you got 12 now. Listen, this is still church. It's not worth $50 Target gift card. But go ahead. How many kids do you have? If you've never met my family, this is a picture of my family right here. This is my crew. This is my amazing wife, Emily. She preached the house down a couple weeks ago on Mother's Day. And then we have our 9-year-old son, Shaw, a 7-year-old daughter, Rosalie, and we have Evie, the baby. She's 3 years old. She is my favorite child right now. Sorry, guys. But this is my family. So what I've learned now that I've been in the parenting game for 9 years and 3 kids is that as a parent, you actually change how you parent from kid to kid. Have you noticed this? Like, how I parent Rosalie and Evie is different than how we parented Shaw as the first child. And I say this because, parenting goes through seasons. Let me illustrate it like this. Let's just take a couple examples, all right? Let's talk about maternity clothes, okay? Let's look at maternity clothes. See, your first baby, you begin wearing maternity clothes as soon as your OBGYN confirms your pregnancy. Remember that? Now look at the second kid. Your second kid, your second baby, you wear your regular clothes as long as possible. And then your third baby, okay, your maternity clothes are your regular clothes. Okay, now before you get offended and start logging off, I got that from a female author who writes about parenting. I feel like the hate right here. I have nobody on this stage to help protect me, by the way. Like, Anthony and Jared are hiding in the back, and those are 22-year-old dudes that aren't even married. So don't, come on, you know it. But this isn't any life pointers, right? This is other people on the World Wide Web. Okay, let's move on to the next category. Look at the next one right here. All right, let's talk about going out. Remember your first baby? Like, you called home every 5 minutes, constantly calling, checking on the baby. And then your second baby, when you would go out, that you remembered to leave a number where you could be reached. Like, you barely remembered that. You're like, oh yeah, before I leave here, just in case you need anything, here's the number. But then on your third baby, come on, this is true. Like, you leave instructions for the sitter to call you only if she sees blood. It's like, I don't care, anything but blood. Like, I'm on a date, don't even call me. It's true. Here's the final one right here. Let's talk about parenting in relationship to swallowing coins. Remember the first child? Like, you rushed them to the hospital and you demanded x-rays when they swallowed a quarter. But then the second kid, right, with them, this second child, you just carefully watched to make sure it passed. And then let's be honest, by the third child, you're like, listen, you're just deducting it from their allowance. You're like, come on. Listen, you have pooped out $15.75 over your lifetime. Come on, listen, it's good to laugh a little bit. I love the book of Proverbs. It says that laughter is medicine for the soul. And I think it's good to laugh as parents, because the reality is there are moments where parenting seems impossible. There are moments where you just feel like you're the worst parent, you're dropping the ball. You wonder, am I really parenting the kid the way that God really needs me to? And I think one of the biggest traps that parents unintentionally fall into is that you're parenting the right way, just in the wrong season. Yeah, get that. You're parenting the right way, it's just in the wrong season. Or let me say it like this, you're parenting out of season. And so today I want to talk to you about what has been identified by people who are much smarter than I am, what have been labeled as the 4 seasons of parenting. And I love that even as your child grows, so should our parenting styles depending on the season. So I want to frame this in Ecclesiastes. I love what Ecclesiastes says, the book of Ecclesiastes, starting in chapter 3, verse 1. Solomon says, "There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under heaven. There's a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak." Verse 8, "At a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace." I love that Solomon sort of frames this forever in history, in the Bible, that life is about seasons. And you know this. There's a time for life and there's a time for death. There's a time for rejoicing and there's a time for mourning. There's day and there's night. There's winter and there's summer. There's COVID-19. And yes, there will be time where there's post-COVID-19. That all of life has seasons. And I think, parents, we get this when it comes to watching our kids grow physically. But just as they grow physically, I want to encourage you that how you parent should change with them. So here's my goal today. I'm just going to put all my cards on the table. I want to help you see the 4 different seasons of parenting so you can start parenting in season. And I want to compare this to the backdrop of this graph right here. I want you to take a minute. I want you to check out this graph. This graph is your relationship with your kids. It specifically your authority in your friendship over the time life of your child. So time represents the lifetime of your kid. And notice that your authority in your friendship changes depending on the season that your child is in. So you can already tell I'm giving you the 4 seasons right out the gate. So let's jump right into this first season of parenting. Go ahead and write this down. It's discipline. It's discipline. Discipline season of parenting is the one that most scholars believe, or psychologists believe, it's between 18 months and 5 years old. So 18 months and 5 years old. And let's go back to the graph. You'll notice that the bar lines that are going up are dotted. And they're dotted for a reason. Because when the different seasons shift, it's different for every kid. Like, please hear me. This isn't copy and paste. Like, you might be hanging on to one season a little bit longer than the other. Typically, you advance in the seasons not by a birthday, but by an event. Like you're nursing and caring and nurturing for that baby, and then they start to crawl, and then they start to walk, and then all of a sudden, it's like one day they look at you and they say, "No." And you're like, "What? Excuse me?" Like, what did you just say? Or they can't get something. They have a tantrum on the floor right there. And you're like, okay, I think we're in the discipline phase of parenting now. And so this is typically 18 months to 5 years. And in this season, like every season, there's a question that you're trying to answer for your kid. And in the discipline season, it's the question about what? What? You're defining your what. What will be your what? Like, in other words, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. What should your kids do? What shouldn't they do? What is right and what is wrong? You're setting boundaries for them. You know, things like you can't play in the middle of the street. Don't talk to strangers. Be respectful. Listen the first time. Don't eat things off the ground. And for the love of God, don't put your hands in your mouth while you're sitting on the toilet going poop. Like, literally, these are things that have actually come out of my mouth as a parent. And it's okay because you're defining the what for them. And I want to encourage you, man, if you're parenting toddlers, like I am, I've got one, there are moments where you feel like you're losing your mind. You're like, you know what? Before kids, I actually thought I was a normal person. But now I feel like my kid never listens to me. All I'm doing is disciplining them. And that's okay because that's the season you're in. I love this author. It won't be on the screen here, but I love what this author says. To me, it's really powerful. It's Gary Smiley. He says, children need a sense of discipline and authority in their lives to help them develop emotionally and physically. It gives children a sense of security to know what their boundaries are. I love that. Discipline is not a bad thing. It's you protecting your kids from what they cannot see. They need it. It provides security. Matter of fact, Proverbs, you'll see it here on the screen, 22 verse 6, Proverbs says, start children off on the way that they should go, and even when they are old, they will not part from it. Now, here's the danger in this season, 18 months to 5 years old. This is the discipline season. The danger is your kids are so cute. I think God made toddlers adorable for a reason, because if he didn't, if this was like Benjamin Button and they're born looking old, it'd be like, get out of my house, right? But and the temptation is that when they say no, when they hit, when they backtalk, you're tempted to look the other way. Literally the other day, my 3-year-old Evie, she is adorable. She walks up to her brother sitting on the couch, closed fist, punches him for no reason. And I'm like, Evie, did you just hit him? And she turns at me with this cute face and she goes, yeah. And I'm like, oh, you're so cute. But I can't let that go. So I have to correct her. I have to discipline her. I have to show her that's not appropriate. And man, I'm so passionate. I want you to see this, that if you let it go, it will grow. Man, somebody needs to write that down. Whatever you let go, it's only gonna grow. And from conversations that I've had with families and friends of mine that are in this age, disciplining is tough. And so can I give you just very quickly 3 essentials to when you're starting to figure out how to discipline your kids? Can I give you 3 essentials? I think this is really gonna help you. Number 1, this is so important right here. You've gotta get on the same page. Getteth thyself on thy same page, saith the Lord. I think that's a verse in the Bible. No, it's not. But this is so important. No good cop, bad cop. Don't make one parent be the main disciplinary. Don't ever override what one parent has already said. Your kids are going to smell this out a mile away. You've got to, whatever you decide, you've got to get on the same page. Number 2, this is critical. You have to decide the punishment for the action. So you need to determine what consequence, what punishment is worthy of what action. Because parents, every action of your kid can't be 100, right? You can't give them the same punishment for not picking up the toy room that you do for them lying to you or hitting somebody, because that's not going to send the right message. So you need to determine, okay, what punishments are worthy, if you will, of what action. And I can just tell you for Emily and I, and I'm not trying to impose our parenting style onto you, but the things that we have found to be very successful over the different seasons that we've been in is whenever we take away privileges and spanking. Those two have just seemed to really, our kids respond well to that. When you take away a privilege, I'm telling you, when you look at your kid who's been excited all week for a birthday party at the jumpy bounce house place, and they're acting up and they're disrespecting you, and you say, hey, listen, if you do that again, you're not going to the party, and then they do it, and you stick to your gun because you got to stick to your guns, they're going to learn really quick. Mom and dad, or mom, if you're a single parent, or dad, they mean business. They mean business. And then spanking, what we've done with that is we always reserve that for the more serious offenses. And when it comes to spanking, I don't know if you had a parent like this, but I remember my mama would just haul off and backhand me. Anybody have a mom like that? You just look at her the wrong way and boom, right? Ring imprint on your cheek. We don't do that. I love you, Mom. What we do when it comes to spanking is we always make sure that our kids know, hey, if you do this again, you're going to get spanked. So we always give them a heads up. And then we never do it out of anger. When I'm worked up, I tell them, go to your room, go sit on the step, and then we begin to do the spanking punishment. And so this is important. You've got to get on the same page, and you have to determine the punishment. And then this third one, this might be the most important. You ready? Be consistent. Whatever it is, I don't care what you do. If you take away things, put them in timeout, put soap in their mouth, spank them, don't spank them. I don't care if you make them hop on one leg. Doesn't matter, whatever it is. Whatever it is, though, be consistent. Because, again, this is the season of your life where you're more of an authoritative because you're helping your kids understand the what. I mean, look back at this graph. I mean, this is the season that you're in. Your authority is very, very high, and your friendship is very, very low. But the thing about parenting that I think is incredible is that it is the greatest test of endurance. Great parents see the long haul picture, and you realize that this is just the season that I'm in. As I get ready to transition to the next season, this is training. Now, training, if this is the season you're in, is typically 6 years old to 12 years old. That's rough, but you're in the training season. And in the training season, you're helping your kids answer the question, why? Why? See, parents, it's so important that at some point you just stop talking about the what. It can't always be about you barking orders. And I know we've all done this. You give the cliche answer when your kids ask you, why can't I? You say, because I, said so. Yeah, but at some point you gotta give them vision. Hey, here's why we don't think it's good for you to have a cell phone in the 3rd grade, even though half your class does. Here's why we limit what you can watch on YouTube, why you can't play certain video games, why we don't want you to spend the night at that person's house. You got to start giving them the why behind the what so that they can begin to see the heart of your parenting when it comes to this. And I love this because in Ephesians, look at this. Here's what Paul says about this. In Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4, Paul says, fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and the instruction of the Lord. I think the window of training is so critical because this is about you parenting their heart. No longer now is it just about their behavior. That's the discipline. That's the earlier years. Now it's about their heart. And this window is critical because now your kids, have you noticed as parents that are raising kids 6 years to 12 years old, they're not around you as much. I mean, they go to school every day for 7-8 hours, or they used to, hopefully will soon. They're going to friends' houses, they're playing sports, they're traveling, they're maybe doing sleepovers. They're not around you as much, but yet you as a parent, you want them, you need them to make decisions when you're not there as if you were there. And this is where the training begins to come in. And honestly, it hit me the other day. You know, I mentioned Shaw's 9. He'll be 10 in a couple months. And it hit me. I'm like, I have fewer years with him in the home ahead of me than I have behind me. I've got 8 more years, essentially, until he's 18 years old, that I've got to start training. I need to do less and less for him and let him own his decisions. And honestly, parents, because I'm living proof of this, you know, I've got a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old, and I want to show you this graph again. You can see it right here. You know, in this training, my authority is starting to go down, but did you notice? My friendship is starting to rise. Where I can honestly tell you, this is so true, that I find myself having way more fun with my 2 older kids than I do disciplining them. It actually works. Again, it doesn't mean that you don't discipline them. You still do, but it should be less. As your authority goes down, your friendship goes up. And then look at the 3rd phase. This is the coach phase. Come on, teenagers, parents of teenagers. I know you've been waiting for me to get to this. You're like, I'm raising this 13-year-old, right? This is 13 to 18 years old. And like now your kids are driving and they have a job and they're driving and they're maybe are dating. And did I mention they're driving? And so now what your kid really needs in the coach phase is a parent who understands that the best coaches are the ones who are able to ask questions. That's what great coaches do. They're able to help the person discover for themselves the answer. Parents, please hear me of teenagers. You don't need to be nurturing them like you used to. You don't need to be a helicopter parent. You need to give them some freedom. You need to flex a little bit. You should not be doing everything for them if you're in the coaching season. You should be helping them discover how to make wise choices. Now, what's important about this season, parents, is you're not helping them answer the what or the why. You've already done that. But instead, this is huge. You're helping them answer the who. The who. Specifically, what kind of person does your kid want to become? In other words, son, daughter, who do you want to be when you get older? Like, what kind of person do you want to be? I guarantee you would blow your teenager away if today, before they go to bed, maybe tonight you go into their room and you were to ask them this question, who do you want to be when you get older? I mean, give them a couple days, let them answer that. I mean, they may say, I want to be somebody who's respected. I want to be successful. I want to be kind. I want to be generous. Whatever it is, then coach them towards that so that when they do act out of line, when their behavior isn't appropriate, this is great. As a parent of a teenager, you just simply ask them, is that the kind of actions a person who wants to be who you want to be would do? Is that how somebody would act? And then are these the kind of friends that are going to lead you to be that kind of who? Do you see this, parents? You're a coach. You're a coach at best. But if you think about it from a sports analogy, great coaches have the ability to pull out greatness. Yeah, I don't know if you're watching the Michael Jordan documentary series called The Last Dance. I've been watching this along with the other 1.5 billion people because it's the only sports show that's really on. And I've enjoyed it. And you know what I walked away realizing is that as great as Michael Jordan was, and he was great, there's no denying it, he would have never been that successful if he didn't have the greatest coach of all time in Phil Jackson. I mean, Phil Jackson was just able to pull out greatness. And parents of teenagers, this is what you should be focusing on. I've got to now transition. I can't be the number one disciplinarian all the time. I can't train them. I can't do everything for them. They need to learn for themselves. They need to fail. They need to make their own mistakes. They need to understand consequences. And I need to help pull out greatness that I know is inside of them. And notice this graph again. If you look at this graph, I think that this is really important because notice, let's be honest, parents of teenagers, I'm telling you what you already know, but your authority in their life is, let's be honest, it's pretty low. And your friendship in this season should start to climb. Because ultimately, as I think every parent watching this, what we ultimately want with our kids is to get to a place of friendship. Isn't it? It's that place in life where your kids actually want to be around you when they don't have to be. See, in the friendship season of parenting, this of course is 18 and up. These are adult age kids now. You're not answering the what or the why or the who, but instead you're answering the how. The how. Specifically what I mean about this one is I think this is what every parent just hopes will happen, that when your grown kids are out of the house, they're going to call you midweek and they're going to ask you how. Hey mom, how would you respond to this? Hey dad, I've got a question for you. How would you handle this situation? Hey, how do you set up a budget? How do I raise this 2-year-old? Hey dad, mom, how do I have a great marriage? Hey, give me some advices on how to have a great career. I think this is what every parent wants. It's their kid coming to them now and asking how. It's friendship. I can honestly tell you that one of my best friends is my mother. I love my dad, but me and my mom have a great relationship, and I ask her all the time questions around how. I asked her what she thought about Emily before I asked Emily to be my wife. I asked her what she thought about me moving to Life Point, Charlotte, North Carolina, to be a part of Life Point Church. And this is a great season, parents, because you think that your window of parenting is closing, but what you begin to realize in the friendship is that it's actually growing. Wow. That God begins to use these seasons when we begin to parent in season. So here's the question that I want to ask you. This is kind of what I want to leave you with today. Okay, you ready? This is the next step today. I want you to think about this. What season of parenting are you in? And are you parenting in your season? What season of parenting are you in? Whether you're parenting in it or not, you're still in it. You're following me? So what parent of seasoning are you? Is it the discipline? Is it training? Is it coaching? Is it friendship? And then are you parenting in season? Because I get it. Some of you right now, like you're raising teenagers and you should be a coach, but you're disciplining them like they're 5 because when they were 5, you were more focused on being their friend than their parent. Ooh, I know it stings a little bit, but yet God can restore things. He can begin to mold things and heal things back together. But you've got to be honest. What season of parenting am I in? And am I going to parent in that season? Now, I don't know if you remember this, but if you watched week 1 of Family Reunion, I had talked about a question, and I gave you this question for you to begin to talk about with your spouse, or if you're in a shared parenting relationship with their mom or their dad, or if you're single just by yourself. But it's this question of, what kind of adults do you want to raise? Think about that. Not what kind of kids do you want to raise, but when your kid is an adult and they're 18, what kind of person do you want them to become? And I told you, I promised you, I'm going to deliver. I told you that I would tell you what Emily and I have put down. This is literally on paper, our vision for our parenting. Here's what we put. We put this right here, that we want to raise kids who love Jesus and each other. That's it. It's simple, it's focused, it's clear. That at the end of the day, I want to raise kids who love Jesus. I mean, they have an authentic relationship with the Lord. It's not their dad or mom's faith, it's their faith. They're serving God, they're pursuing, they love Jesus. And I also want them to love each other. Like, I think a big win, at least for Emily and I, is that our kids as brother and sisters, they want to get together even when they don't have to. Like, they call each other even when we don't make them. And notice on this parenting goal for Emily and I don't have anything about money or what kind of career they do or how successful they are. Those things are great. And yes, there's an importance value. But if I had to strip it all back, this is really what I want. I want them to love Jesus, and I want them to love each other. And I know if they're doing those two things, I believe in faith that their quality of life is going to be high. And here's what I know. And I want to say this with sensitivity. I think there's probably some of you watching today, and man, you feel the emotion of this because you're not parenting in season. And some of you have adult kids that you don't talk with, you don't speak with, and you realize that you weren't the parent that they needed, or they were a rebellious kind of child and you felt like you did everything that you could. And some of you are having relationships with your kids and they're not talking to you and they're going behind your back and things are not good. And if that is you, I want you to lean in. Please hear my heart. That just as God is a creator of seasons, God is a restorer of seasons. Did you hear that? That we serve a God who can restore all things. That God is a restorer. He can restore your broken relationship with your kid. He can restore your marriage. He can restore your addiction. He can restore whatever it is that you feel like you've lost. I feel like preaching right now. I'm coming into your house to give you a big encouraging hug that we serve a God who's a restorer. You know why I know this? Because He's able. He's able. God is bigger than your problems. He is bigger than your kid's learning disability. He is bigger than their disobedience and their behavior. He is bigger than your broken relationship. And it is never too late to be the parent that God has called you to be. Never give up on them. Give them a call. Have arms wide open policy. Man, I bet it would do a good if you called your grown kid today and say, hey, listen, I want to own my part. I apologize. Parents, it's never too late, even if you feel like you haven't parented in the right season, that we trust in a big God who is sovereign and above, and that even if we didn't have a plan for our kid's life, Jesus Christ has always had a plan for your kid. And we believe that you can do it. And so I want to take a moment right wherever you're watching this from. Before you log off, don't log off. I want to pray for you. I feel like you need this prayer because it is one of the most difficult things. But remember, week 1, the purpose of parenting, it's ultimately the unity of the family, the organism of the family is designed to bring God glory and for our enjoyment. It's to make Jesus known on the earth, and how you raise your kids, how you treat your wife and your spouse brings God glory, and it's for our enjoyment. And that's my prayer. I'm praying this over your life. So Lord, right now, all across the live stream, the internet, families who are watching, Lord, I pray for every single situation. It's beyond what I know. God, we've got families who are crushing it and doing great. We have others who have done everything by the book and their kids are still responding in a way that doesn't merit how they loved them. We have families who are shared parenting, families who have given their children up for adoption. And we have all different spectrums. So Lord, I pray that people hear the heart behind this. And that is, Father, you are a restorer of everything. Lord, that at the end of the day, we don't save our kids, only you do. That we are not the answer, you are the answer. And my greatest thing that I can do is just be a pointer. Just keep pointing my kids towards Jesus. Keep pointing my kids in the right direction. And so, Lord, I pray that husbands and wives get on the same page, that they recognize the season that they're in, and that they begin to parent in that season right now. Even if they haven't in the past, it's a new day today. And Lord, I believe in that by faith. We're going to see the family thrive like never before. Thank you, Jesus, that you love us as a heavenly Father unconditionally. Help us now to reflect that to our kids. We love you, Lord. We pray this in your name. And every family watching said amen. Amen.